Hello everyone, this is my presentation on the immune system and the similarities and differences between the innate immune system and acquired immune system. So I made a flowchart here to show some of the similarities and differences between the two and what they share between the two systems. So you can see we have the innate immune system and the acquired immune system, and they both contain YP cells and natural killer T cells. The innate immune system consists of dendritic cells, regular NK cells, and macrophages, and then the acquired immune system consists of B cell, T cells, and antibodies. And then you can see that the innate immune system is nonspecific immunity, has cytokines, phagocytosis, which is the breakdown of any kind of foreign body that is present within the host, mainly viruses or bacteria, and then cytotoxicity, which is also shared with the acquired immune system, and they also have cytokines as well, along with antibodies that are formed once the body becomes exposed to an infection or a vaccine, and it is also antigen specific. So the innate immunity is what you're born with, and it's always present within the body. It's antigen non-specific, and it has a rapid response, so this can happen within a few minutes to a few hours. But it has no memory, so it does not retain memory of infections. So if you get an infection and then you get the same one maybe a couple months later, and the body, from the innate immunity, does not recognize that this infection has been present before. It's composed of natural barriers, so like skin, mucous membranes, in the mouth and in some of the organs, like the stomach, hairs in the nasal cavity, pH levels and acidity levels within stomach acid and urine. It includes phagocytes and NK cells, which are natural killer cells, has soluble mediators, which is part of the complement system, and pattern recognition molecules, which are innate receptors, and these help them bind to microorganisms that become present within the body due to an infection. Adaptive immunity is only present in vertebrates, and it appears after the immune system responds to a foreign substance, whether that be infection or a vaccination, and this one is antigen specific, so it has a slower response, which can happen over a few days. So this is why when you've been exposed to someone who's infected with a disease or a virus, it can take a few days for it to show up, because your adaptive immune response is taking a while to recognize that there is something in your body that does not belong there. It does have a memory response, and clonal expansion allows for this arsenal to be built of antigen-specific cells, so that way they can be created to provide a more rapid response to the same antigen in the future. And they are made of antigen recognition molecules, which are B and T cell receptors, and they secrete molecules. Pathogen recognition. The skin is a physical barrier that prevents most organisms from entering, so this is kind of the first line of defense. So if there's not a break or a tear or a wound in the skin, most of the time any kind of microbe will not be able to enter the body unless it's through your mouth or your eye or something else. The mucus, like in the mouth, contains lysozyme, which can kill certain viruses and bacteria, and it kind of helps wash away any kind of food particles that might contain any kind of harmful bacteria that can cause tooth decay or other illnesses. And then if there's a cut or break in the skin, a pathogen can enter the body this way, and this is when the blood and lymph are able to detect these pathogens using PAMs that are located on the pathogen surface. They're kind of like little flags that show up so that you can see that this does not belong in the body. And then a large phagocyte cell, which is called a macrophage, will engulf any foreign pathogens once they've been identified within the body, and then pattern recognition receptors help the macrophages to recognize these PAMs on the microbe surface. PRRs on macrophages and dendritic cells help to recognize antigens, and toll-like receptors are a type of PRR that recognize molecules that are shared amongst different pathogens, and these are distinguishable from that of host molecules so they don't get them confused and try to engulf the healthy cells as opposed to the infected cells. The parts that are shared or different within the two immunities are cytokines. This is a chemical messenger that regulates cell differentiation, proliferation, and gene expression when an immune response occurs within the body. And these are composed of interleukins, which interact between leukocytes and connect the responses between the innate and adaptive immunity responses. Interferons are produced mainly from infected cells that have been infected by a virus or bacteria, but mainly viruses, and they block protein synthesis, which allows for the cell to become resistant to further infection from the virus. So this limits the infection between different cells, so that it cannot replicate and start spreading to different cells within a host. NK cells, or natural killer cells, are a type of white blood cell that identify and destroys infected cells by secreting perforin. And they're always active within the body and always moving and searching for pathogens or viruses that are not supposed to be in the body. And then dendritic cells are critically important to innate immunity. They have highly efficient APC properties that allow them to trigger the adaptive immune responses that are carried out by the T cells, and they're able to recognize and phagocytize pathogens and other antigens. Plasmacystoid dendritic cells produce large amounts of alpha beta interferons in response to viruses and bacteria. And then the T and B cells, which are part of the adaptive immunity. Mainly the T cells are for cell-mediated immunity, and there are different types of T cells. So there's cytotoxic, which kills infected cells via apoptosis or cell death. Helper T cells help stimulate B cells and secrete cytokine, and then memory helps with the immune memory, which helps the adaptive immunity later on recognize in the body if there is a pathogen or a virus that has been in the body previously. It helps enact the immune response to that and helps the body fight it better. And then the B cells, also a part of adaptive immunity, but they're mainly part of humoral immunity, and this is when B cells are activated to secrete antibodies after binding to antigens, and they secrete these antibodies in the plasma. They're consisted of 2 heavy chains and 2 light chains, which have a constant and a variable region, and the variable regions are the ones that are involved in antigen binding. So this is what binds to whatever microbe is present in the body. They help bind to that so that they can eliminate that. And both of these cells recognize and bind specific antigens by a complementary receptor. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.